The knives are out, the gloves are off, and they want him out.
The number of Labour MPs calling for the Prime Minister to resign continues to rise. Now, the number of MPs calling for the PM to go is now well over 50.
Leadership brings with it responsibilities. And this defeat is Keir Starmer's responsibility.
Labour kicking out Keir Starmer after this scandal exploded makes sense, because his own party is finally treating him like the liability voters spotted months ago. MPs are turning on him. Local elections became a massacre, and Starmer still acts calm while the whole Labour machine collapses under his own arrogance, sleaze, and failure.
But looking into this visceral hatred, I mean, what Labour MPs are saying to one another in the corridors, in the tea rooms, to one another, the whispering, how do we get him out? He doesn't seem to listen.
The funniest part of this entire meltdown is that the rebellion is not even coming from one ideological side anymore. Keir Starmer has somehow managed to annoy everybody simultaneously. MPs from reform-threatened areas are panicking because their voters are abandoning Labour. MPs in London are panicking because Green voters are abandoning Labour too. That takes real talent. Usually politicians lose support in one direction. Starmer looked at the entire electoral map and decided to upset every possible faction at once. Labour MPs are openly discussing leadership challenges now, because they know staying attached to Starmer could end their own careers.
The unions have called for Starmer to go. They got a kicking in Scotland. The leader in Scotland called for Starmer to go months ago. In Wigan, Labour lost every single seat up for election to reform. There is no such thing now as a Labour safe seat anywhere in the country. Barry might want to push back on that.
And look at the number everyone in Westminster keeps whispering about now. 81. That is the threshold for launching a leadership challenge. Labour MPs are counting numbers against their own Prime Minister like they are preparing a prison escape plan. Reports already put more than 50 MPs publicly against him.
Starmer to launch a contest, 81 is the number of nominations they would need to kick that contest off. So there is some sort of received wisdom in Westminster that once the number calling for Starmer to go hits 81, we might start to see some movement amongst the movers and shakers, the ministers. Those sorts of resignations might well happen.
More names keep appearing every day. Fred Thomas, Lorraine Beavers, Jazz Athwal, Sarah Smith. Then you already had figures like Zara Sultana, Clive Lewis, Ian Lavery, Graham Stringer, and Barry Gardiner piling pressure onto him earlier. This is not random frustration anymore. This is organised panic spreading through the party.
Jazz Athwal and Sarah Smith, two Labour MPs both saying that Labour needs to go. That brings our total up to 56 saying that Starmer should go.
What makes Keir Starmer look especially pathetic is how detached he appears while all this is happening. MPs are reportedly saying the man barely speaks to them. Some say they have never even properly talked to him. Imagine becoming Prime Minister while acting like the office manager nobody can approach without scheduling a meeting 3 months in advance. Labour MPs describe him as aloof, cold, disconnected, and completely unwilling to listen. Then Starmer wonders why people inside the party suddenly treat him like a political problem instead of a leader. How exactly did he think this style was going to end?
He doesn't seem to listen. He didn't listen at the local elections. He doesn't listen to votes in the House. He doesn't even speak to people. The amount of people who say to me, I've never even spoken to Keir Starmer. He doesn't care.
Then came the local election disaster, and honestly, it was brutal. Labour reportedly lost more than 1,300 seats. That is not a bad evening. That is political humiliation on an industrial scale. Sunderland gone, Newcastle gone, Camden gone, Westminster gone, Tameside gone after 47 years, Wigan collapsing to reform, Wales turning into a catastrophe after Labour controlled it for a century.
Does there have to be a contest for the next leader of the Labour Party? Some people are suggesting there could be a coronation for Andy Burnham if he wins a by-election.
I think it'd be better if we had a contest, personally. Not a really long one, though, my gosh.
Keir Starmer managed to take one of the safest political brands in Britain and turn it into a giant warning sign for voters. At this point, Labour candidates probably hear Starmer's name and start sweating through their suits. The Wales collapse especially destroyed Starmer's image of competence. Eluned Morgan lost her seat and actually accepted responsibility publicly. That is what leaders normally do after a political disaster.
They can be quite tedious. Sorry, that wasn't yes or no. Yes, there has to be a contest.
And should Keir Starmer run if there's a contest?
In my opinion, no.
We got there. Jess Phillips, thank you so much indeed. I think that...
Starmer instead keeps acting like everything around him exploded for mysterious reasons nobody could possibly understand. Voters are angry over immigration, angry over small boats, angry over cost of living pressures, angry over healthcare failures, angry over crime, angry over Southport, angry over the feeling that Labour lectures ordinary people instead of listening to them. None of this happened overnight. People warned Starmer repeatedly. He just ignored it because he thought media management was the same thing as leadership.
People who haven't rebelled against the Prime Minister, have kept their heads down, have been good, loyal Labour MPs up until this point, and are now suddenly speaking out against the Prime Minister.
One of the most embarrassing moments in this whole crisis was Starmer's own quote coming back to destroy him. Remember when he said, "If you lose elections in a democracy, you deserve to lose"? Well, congratulations, Keir. Your own words now sound like a resignation letter written months in advance. The man practically prepared the attack ad against himself, and still he refuses to read the room. He keeps talking about stability while his own MPs are openly discussing successes behind closed doors. That is like a football manager insisting the season is going brilliantly, while fans are throwing scarves onto the pitch demanding his resignation. Then the sleaze problem started getting attached to him too, which is devastating because being clean was basically his whole personality. Starmer sold himself as the boring, honest lawyer who would restore standards after conservative chaos. Then suddenly the Peter Mandelson and Jeffrey Epstein controversy starts hanging around Labour like toxic smoke. The damaging part was not just the association itself. It was the way Starmer handled questions around it. Critics accused him of dodging straightforward answers until pressure forced him into admissions. That instantly damages the one thing he needed most, which was trust.
This time round, people haven't agreed with my views, my policies, but that's democracy, and as a politician, you've got to accept it. Now, okay, you asked me about the leadership of the country. Leadership brings with it responsibilities. And this defeat is Keir Starmer's responsibility. And that's why I think he should accept that responsibility.
That is the real reason this situation looks so dangerous for Keir Starmer now. People did not vote for him because he was charismatic. Nobody was hanging posters of Keir Starmer on bedroom walls. People tolerated him because they thought he was serious and competent. Once competence disappears, what exactly is left? A robotic speech style? Awkward interviews? Auto-cue jokes written by advisors? MPs reportedly walked away from his big speech furious because it sounded empty and scripted. Even the humour was apparently written into the auto-cue. That tells you everything. The man talks like a corporate compliance seminar pretending to be a prime minister during a national crisis.
It is like a bloodbath in Parliament. There is absolutely visceral hatred for the man, for Keir Starmer amongst his backbench MPs. It is civil war in there now. The knives are out, the gloves are off, and they want him out.
Keir Starmer's biggest problem now is not even the opposition. It is the fact that Labour itself has turned into a civil war zone. The atmosphere inside the party sounds absolutely poisonous. MPs are reportedly furious with him behind closed doors. WhatsApp groups are exploding. Backbenchers are openly discussing how to remove him. Some are saying the whole project is collapsing in real time. One Labour MP reportedly wrote that anyone who thinks the current situation is sustainable needs an MRI. Imagine your own side talking about you like a failed kitchen appliance that keeps leaking smoke into the building.
And that's why I think he should accept that responsibility and he should stand aside. Not stand aside for the sake of the Labour Party, but to stand aside for the sake of the country.
And honestly, Starmer created this environment himself. For years, he ran Labour through control, discipline, suspensions, and loyalty tests. MPs who stepped out of line were pushed aside. Local candidates who disagreed with tiny pieces of policy suddenly found themselves blocked or removed. Now the same people he sidelined are watching him collapse and thinking, why exactly should we save this guy? That is the danger, when leadership becomes all management and no connection. People stop respecting you and start fearing you. Then eventually, they stop fearing you too.
With the Tories, they changed leader to save themselves and to save their party each time. I think we now need to change leader in the Labour Party to save this country.
The funniest thing is how Labour figures keep trying to defend Starmer with these unbelievably weak talking points. David Lammy came out with the classic line, "You don't change the pilot mid-flight." First of all, yes, they literally do on long-haul flights. Second, this is not some smooth flight experiencing light turbulence. The engine is on fire, passengers are screaming, and Starmer is standing there insisting everybody stay calm while the cockpit fills with smoke. Labour keeps acting like removing him would create chaos when the chaos already arrived months ago under his leadership.
I'm not going to walk away from those challenges and plunge the country into chaos.
He doesn't want to plunge the country into chaos. What does he think this is? I don't know. Keir Starmer saying that he's going to stay and fight. It's like Comical Alley, isn't it? Saying that there's no Americans in Baghdad as the tanks roll in behind him.
Then you have Angela Rayner suddenly repositioning herself around the working class argument. She reportedly pushed the idea that Andy Burnham should never have been blocked and wrote this massive essay accusing Labour of betraying working class roots. That alone tells you Starmer's authority is dying. Senior figures are no longer protecting him. They are preparing their own survival strategies for whatever comes next. Wes Streeting's name keeps floating around. Andy Burnham's name keeps floating around. Every conversation inside Labour now sounds less like support for Starmer and more like succession planning around his funeral.
And I want somebody to be leading this country. Obviously, I want it to be a Labour person. I want it to be a Labour Prime Minister leading this country forward and reminding people why it was at the last election that they had hope and optimism in voting Labour.
The deeper problem is that Labour itself looks completely divided about what it even believes anymore. One side wants higher wages, more state spending, stronger union politics, and a return to old Labour identity. Another side thinks the party needs to move harder on migration and stop sounding like a Green Party university society. Starmer sits awkwardly in the middle, trying to please everyone and convincing nobody. That is why his speeches feel empty. He talks in consultant language because saying anything clear would upset one faction or another.
52% likely to go to the Green Party, only 26% Labour, so it looks like a strong win for the Green Party.
For the Greens, certainly after these local elections. Anyway, the interesting thing...
Immigration became one of the biggest disasters for him politically. Starmer promised to smash the gangs, but voters still see small boats arriving and immediately think the government has failed. Labour completely underestimated how angry ordinary people already were about migration pressures before entering office. Then after Southport, instead of calming tensions carefully, critics felt Starmer instantly moved into lecture mode and started treating public anger like extremism. That was a catastrophic political instinct because voters hate being dismissed more than they hate being disagreed with.